Welcome back to mine and Nicole's podcast. Think it, believe it, find your inner glow. This is episode 3, and we are super excited to have you back with us because my gosh, it's been way too long. It's been a lot of stuff going on, a lot of illness. And so, unfortunately, Nicole and I have not had time or the opportunity to get together and record episode 3 until now. But anyways, we're back and we're so excited to have you guys with us. Right, Nicole?
Very excited to have you guys with us. And today we're going to do a follow-up on last week's episode where we talked about self-talk and our inner critic. Right, Christine?
And tips and tricks and how to deal with it and what to do when those thoughts come up.
Exactly, which we will discuss in further depth in this episode.
All right. So first of all, how has your week been, Nicole? Has it been exciting? Has it been good? Have you been up to anything?
My week has been great, actually. Thank you very much. Thanks for asking. Yeah, lots of exciting things happening.
Well, my week, unfortunately, has been very, very, very heavy.
And I'm so sorry.
It's a little bit like we talked about in the last episode as well. Allowing yourself to sit, and you made a really, really good comment last week, Nicole, because I said, allow yourself to sit in it. And then you corrected me and said, no, allow yourself to sit with it, which I thought was really, really good. And it's a very, very important distinction.
I think you're right. I think like the distinction is that sitting with it, we allow ourselves to get curious compassionately, like what's going on here? Okay, what is coming up for me to heal? Whereas like sitting in it, you're just dwelling on negativity and you're just bringing suffering onto yourself.
100%, 100%. Yeah, so we had a lot of illness in the house this past week, and I was feeling guilty because I wasn't able to catch up with work. And then it was a little bit like we've talked about in the episodes before as well, allowing yourself to, it's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to accept that sometimes life happens and things happen outside of your control, and to lean into it and not judge ourselves. And this is, again, where the inner critic, which is constantly with us day in and day out, pops up again.
Absolutely. So I'm actually quite curious. Amidst all this chaos that has been happening this week, how have you been watching your self-talk?
Well, I personally, when I have a lot of inner critic going on, I feel it in my stomach. A lot of people feel it physically. You can sometimes feel it in your chest. You can feel it in your solar plexus. Some people get agitated and anxious. I personally feel when inner critic starts on that hamster wheel, I personally feel it in my solar plexus. And I tend to, unfortunately, even though I work as a coach, tend to sit in it and dwell in it and get into that negative spiral, exactly what you just said. But here's a trick. Because I work with this and because you and I have gone through the coaching processes that we've done, we have learned to, I think, recognize it and be more sensitive to that inner critic.
And when we are more aware of it and when we recognize it, that means that we can catch it, first of all, and take 5 steps back to evaluate what's going on without trying to judge ourselves too harshly. And I love how you mentioned like how some of us feel our inner critic physically. I completely agree with you. I'm also the same. I also feel my inner critic in my solar plexus and in my chest, and maybe sometimes in my throat as well.
Yeah, it's such a difficult one because It's interesting. So one of the modalities that I've studied is metacognitive thinking or metacognitive therapy, in which, we have millions and millions of thoughts every single day, every one of us. And most of those thoughts that we have, they don't carry an emotional attachment. And so we're not aware that we're even having those thoughts. So you're
Mm-hmm.
crossing the street, you see a blue car, you go, there's a blue car. Oh, I have to wait for the green light to cross the street. All of these thought processes are going on continuously, but because they don't carry any emotional baggage, we don't pay any attention to them. So we're not even aware of them. And it's
Yeah.
only when we get into the thinking and the inner critic that carries emotional weight, that's when we feel it physically, like you and I do in our solar
Mm-hmm.
plexus and in our throats and in our chest. And
It's
one of, sorry,
it's a memory from our past,
100%.
more emotionally charged.
100%. It's past programming from our childhood, could even be generational, could be from when we were in the womb, could be a whole bunch, it could be our mother's programming as well from where we were in her womb. But one of the things that's really, for me at least, interesting is a technique that I use comes from metacognitive therapy, which is a little bit like, when you're in a sushi restaurant and the sushi restaurants that have the sushi
The
that come
rolls,
around,
the sushi rolls,
it goes
yes,
goes around and
yes,
you pick the pieces that you want, and then there's always that one piece of sushi that nobody wants to eat that just goes round and round and round.
yes. Oh, I love that analogy. That
So
makes so much
so
sense,
So the thing
actually.
is, when the thoughts that come up that trigger you, because you will feel that they trigger you, exactly like
Mm-hmm.
you said, Nicole, you will feel it physically. When those thoughts come up, observe them in the beginning as they come around, and they will come back around, and they will come back around again
I
without
love that.
judgment. And observe them without judgment and say to yourself,
Exactly.
oh, there you are again. Hello, I see you. Very interesting. I acknowledge you, but I'm not going to engage with you.
And the more we do that, and the more we practice it, and the more we repeat that practice, you'll find the less reactive you get to your
100%.
triggers, actually.
100%. So that's my personal, what I have found that works for me. But all of these things are very individual. So I want to hear what works for you, Nicole.
Well, I wanted to talk about pattern interrupts because I feel they're very, very useful. And it actually leads on from what you said about that sushi roll, observing that thought coming around and over and over and over again. And then you can choose not to engage with it. But by choosing not to engage with it, we need to apply a pattern interrupt because that thought going round and round and round is a pattern, right?
100%.
But what can we do to break that pattern and just be like, oh, okay, right, you're there. Thank you very much. Thank you for showing up because you're just here to be released and to see the light. So I release you compassionately. I like to treat these kind of emotions almost as if they're guests in my own home, you know,
Not welcome guests, I hope.
and treat them with compassion.
Okay, that's better.
Um, and by expressing gratitude and compassion for these triggers and knowing that they're just here to guide me to what needs to be healed, and it's just feedback that I am not aligned with myself, and that it's just a past version of me coming up, needing my attention, then I'm able to express gratitude.
It's so interesting what you said about observing it with gratitude and appreciation, because I so agree with you, Nicole. I think all of our triggers, all of our feelings, all of our emotions, as you so rightly pointed out, it's past programming. and they're there to warn. So it comes in with the fight or flight response that we have, and they're there to teach us something, and they're there to warn us. It's something that we picked up and programmed when from before, from whenever it was. And it's something exactly as you said, by identifying it and not judging it and treating it, like you said, with compassion. What is it that I need to let go? What is it that I need to learn so that it does not trigger me, so that it doesn't carry the emotional weight anymore?
Absolutely. And that's when we start using the pattern interrupts. And there can be three types of pattern interrupts: a physical pattern interrupt, a mental pattern interrupt, and a spiritual pattern interrupt. Personally, for me, I like to move my body. I like to dance. I like to do some yoga. So that's what I like to do sometimes when I'm triggered. Um, and then that gratitude practice that I was just mentioning, I like to do that when I find myself I'm triggered. Um, and then I call in my higher self, you know? And I like to maybe journal about what's going on as well.
That's such a powerful exercise, journaling. I agree with you. I like to pattern interrupt, but I'm not someone who, so I'll wave my arms. I'll just to get physically make an impact, bam, right there and then, to stop whatever process is going on in my brain. So my husband and my son are used to this quite, which is led to many funny moments. But I will stand in the living room, or I'll be in the supermarket or whatever, and all of a sudden I'll start waving my arms just so I get that impact right away of breaking the thought
Mm-hmm.
that I have right there and then. And it's super effective. It's very powerful.
Well, that's why each person to their own, right? Each person has to figure out what is impactful for them. And I feel like the more awareness you create about when you're triggered, and a realization that you're in a place of resistance or in a place of constriction, with practice, you're able to pattern interrupt. The more awareness you create.
I love that. I love that.
It's just about redirecting your thoughts to a better feeling thought that is available to you right now. I'm not saying that you're down here and you have to go up here to joy and peace, but I'm saying that like you're down here, but you have to go to at least neutral.
We talk very often about even just the 1% shift, a
Yes,
1%
absolutely.
improvement. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
so like you said so correctly, even if you're down here, if you just get a little 1% above, it's already an improvement.
Exactly. And that's why I said, like, redirect your thoughts to a better feeling thought that is available to you in that moment. And you can do it like with sticky notes, maybe write sticky notes around your house, with good things so that every time you feel triggered, maybe you look at a positive sticky note and that will refocus your thoughts.
I love that. I love that. It reminds me sort of, when you're a teenager and a teenage girl, well, for us at least, and, putting up sticky notes with "you were good enough" and "you were loved." And we've talked about it before. It's such a cliche, but the thing is that it works exactly as you're saying, Nicole. And
Mhm.
who cares if you have a million sticky notes everywhere? As I like to work, I like to have sticky notes to remind myself of things on at the bottom of my computer. Why not have them all around the house?
Absolutely. So, yeah, these are some practices that I have started to implement that have helped me shift my perspective.
and it's powerful and effective practices like you were mentioning. And I think it's also very important what you were saying is that the more you practice them, the easier they become, because it becomes you're reprogramming your brain again,
Mhm.
where we talk about programming. You're reprogramming so that when you have that feeling, that thought, that inner critic voice, you become aware of it a lot quicker, and you pattern interrupt and can interrupt it and change the way you feel about
Absolutely.
it much quicker. And then I think, I don't know about how it is for you, Nicole, but for me at least, when I find myself in a better place mentally and energetically, to try to go back, and this is where I think it's so powerful what you were saying about journaling, to try to go back and see, why does this thought, why does this event, why does this
Mhm.
person trigger me so much, and become curious about it.
Yeah. But before you can get curious about it, that's when the pattern interrupts come in. Pattern interrupts are not a way to avoid your feelings, but they are a way for you to take 5 steps back so that you can get curious as to what's going on.
And this is a really important distinction, because as we all know, Nicole and I are not talking about suppressing your thoughts or suppressing your emotions or suppressing your energy, because as we all know, the more you suppress and suppress and suppress, it becomes like a pressure cooker. So that's not what
Mhm.
we're saying at all. What we're saying is exactly what Nicole, and I think it's so important that it needs to be repeated, is that we're just in the moment. This is tips and tricks on how you can change that thought process that you're stuck in, and then come back to it and address it. So super important. We're not talking about suppressing emotions. We're talking about making yourself feel better right there and then without suppressing.
Absolutely. Making yourself feel better so that you have the perspective to get curious about what's going on. But I want to ask you a question actually.
Okay.
How do we become aware of these thoughts?
Well, like I said, for me at least, it's a physical reaction. It's I feel it in my solar plexus, and I've been there and done so much work on myself for many decades already, that I recognize that this physical feeling that I'm having is coming from inner critic voice and inner critic and inner negativity and negative thought patterns.
Mhm. Interesting.
And,
I
and for
like
you?
that.
And for you?
Also, like what you said, like notice my physical sensations. And also, I like to create check-ins with myself and ask myself, okay, how am I feeling now? Am I feeling good? Am I feeling just neutral? Or am I feeling like rubbish? You know, am I feeling sad face or am I feeling smiley face? And then I'd ask myself, like, why am I feeling this way?
And how often
Uh,
do you do that in a day?
I would recommend 3 times a day. But to start off with, I actually recommend every hour to get yourself used to it.
So like setting a timer on your phone.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I love
And
that. I
then
love that.
I would like write a list of emotions that I want to feel, of positive emotions, and then a list of negative emotions that I don't want to feel. Then when my timer goes off, it's a reminder to check in with myself and ask myself, okay, how am I feeling now? Am I feeling smiley face, one of the emotions that I want to feel? Or am I feeling sad face, one of the emotions that I don't want to feel?
I
And
love
then,
that. I love that. And I think it's so important to do that because I think we get so caught up and busy in our daily lives and the daily grind of getting up in the morning, having somewhere to go, getting dressed, brushing your teeth, having breakfast, having coffee, having whatever. Da, 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 da. Our days are so much like that that rarely do we stop, take a minute, breathe deeply, and go, how am I feeling right now? I love that.
absolutely, absolutely. And taking a deep breath as well is so important, as you mentioned. And these check-ins actually allow you to discover the undertones of your own self-talk. Is it the voice of criticism? Is it the voice of judgment? Is it the voice of not enoughness?
I love that. I love that.
Or is it the voice of positivity, love, peace? I am enough. And I like to call my self-talk like harpy on the shoulder, you know? So when harpy is chipping away, how can I give it compassion? Which is how we come back to the pattern interrupts.
I love that.
And another cool interrupt I like to use is just imagining like the voice of a cartoon character. So if someone's talking to you and it annoys you, just imagine them as if they're a cartoon character, what they're saying to you.
Okay.
And that's exactly the energy we want, right? To laugh.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely, absolutely. Make fun of it and make light of it and ridicule it. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I love that. I think that's so good. So yeah, so Nicole and I have given you guys quite a couple of tips now, concrete tips about how to stop the inner critic, pattern interruption, as Nicole mentioned as well, super important, and that there's 3 types,
And some exercises for
and
you
some
to do.
exercises. But for sure, the number one step is obviously identifying that you're feeling like this right now
Yeah.
and why, and anxiety and stress and rumination, especially, if you can't fall asleep at night because you're ruminating a lot. These are all symptoms of a very active inner critic and negative self-talk.
Mhm.
So Nicole and I have given you guys some concrete tips and exercises on how you can address this. And I hope you guys found them useful.
Let us know how you find them down in the comments, please. And let us know what other tips you would love for us to discuss and what else you would love for us to help you out with so
And
that we know.
absolutely. And for our next episode, we're going to talk a little bit about how to deal with triggering family members and situations as the holidays are coming up.
Absolutely.
Or maybe spending, it's that's a little bit the thing with family. Sometimes you have to do what you don't necessarily want to do, and that's part of being an adult, as I like to say to my son. It's part of being a person. So we're going to talk a little bit about that and how to deal with that. And if there's anything else, like Nicole said, that you guys would like to comment or would like us to address, please comment and subscribe.
Perfect. And see you everyone next episode.
All right. Bye,
Bye
everybody.
bye.